Hey, this is Michael Janda. I'm here with Elise, and we're going to talk about imposter syndrome. This is a topic that so many people struggle with.
Yeah, so I feel imposter syndrome all the time. I feel a little bit right now, to be honest. Am I qualified? Am I good enough to be on camera with Michael Janda? I feel it all the time,
yes, because
right?
I feel imposter syndrome right now too. So am I good enough to be doing videos like this? So I hear you, but keep going.
Yeah, so first thing I always tell myself when I'm starting to feel imposter syndrome is everyone feels that way. And this is a shared feeling amongst almost anyone I've ever met, and amongst, like, I was even reading about on the founder of Instagram and his feelings of imposter syndrome and of feeling insecure, and people that I really respect feel that same way. And so I feel like much more comforted by that. So that's the first thing I do. I comfort myself.
Yes,
and then
good.
the second thing I do is I think about, do I feel imposter syndrome because I really feel unqualified? Or do I just feel insecure and emotional? Like, is that just an emotional reaction? And when I felt unqualified, there are some tactics that I take. I make sure that I try to become as qualified as I can and as much time as I'm allotted. So, and a good example of this is when I first learned design. About a year into it, I did a 2-day UX branding workshop for a client. And I never done a branding workshop before. And I was like, oh, I'm scared. I felt imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
And so what I did was I watched a lot of Chris Do's branding videos. I read a lot of books, one of them Zag by Marty Neumeier.
Yeah.
I just took in as much content as I could. And I was like, all I got to do is be the expert in the room. I don't need to be an expert among experts of all people who do branding. I just need to be the expert in the room and do my best. And so after that, actually, the client had told me, like, I have done 3 branding workshops and this is the best one we've ever had. Awesome. And I was like, oh my gosh, right? So validating. So it wasn't necessarily about how much time and expertise I've accumulated over many years. It was about how I measured success. And so 1 was like the client's satisfaction, and 2 was feeling like I did something that was really difficult and I challenged myself and I learned from that. So that was another measure of success for me.
Yeah.
And so the other thing is kind of talking about when I was researching and looking at founders, I did find that a lot of them have been through the gamut, have really not had anyone, kind of going back to the mentorship thing, no one's mentored them. Like a lot of the ones that I've read about, no one's like mentored them through each step of the process, like really was there for every step of the way, held their hand. A lot of times they just have to like go and try something out and fail and succeed and try something else out and keep moving forward, keep trudging on. And so those are people that I find are my mentors that I want to emulate. And so that's kind of the way I've thought about pushing through imposter syndrome as well.
Yeah. I love all of those, and they're spot on. So I 100% agree. One of the things that you alluded to was that everybody feels it. Everybody feels it. I can't count the number of times that I click post on Instagram thinking, is this even good? Is this content even good? And then I get 100 messages, 100 comments that say, oh, I really needed this today. Oh, this is my favorite post you ever did, that kind of thing. And I almost didn't even post it because of imposter syndrome. I had an experience when I was 28 years old and I landed a job as a creative director at Fox Studios. And that's when I moved to LA, which we were talking about a little earlier. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to be working with the greatest designers and producers in all the world. And I got that little measure of imposter syndrome, and I'm going to be their boss. So I was like, oh man, am I even qualified for this? 1 week into it, I found that everybody working in the mega companies are just normal people. They're no better or no worse than the people that are working at your company right now, this very second. They're just people. and they have
Yeah.
talents. And some of them have been fortunate to land in big companies like that, but it doesn't make them better people than you. Everybody's
Yeah.
just a person. They all have their own challenges. And we get imposter syndrome a lot of times because we look outside, we only see the good in their life. We see that they're the CEO of this or the founder of that, and we think, oh, look at them, they're rocking it. And what we don't see is that they're on the brink of bankruptcy, that their marriage just failed, that they just lost a child, that their car blew up. We don't see any of that stuff that is the normal human stuff. And so we get imposter syndrome because we think, who am I to try and do what they're doing because I have all of these flaws in my life. Well, they have flaws too, and they struggle with imposter syndrome just like you and I do.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's why I love that podcast so much, How I Built This. And I just listened to the one from Headspace and how the guy, Andy, after they came to LA when their app was just starting to somewhat be successful, he got cancer and had to deal with that. And his partner had to take on all the duties for both people, and just the difficulties and the challenges of that. And the fact that he was just like this monk, and then went to like circus school and then like created this app. Like, you just see that these people are just regular people. They are no better than I in a lot of ways. And that, it's almost like every time I've gone into a new business, like, I work with like Adobe, or if I work with like some of these bigger companies, and you realize that, oh wow, like you thought they were going to be this like amazing, not that they're not amazing. I shouldn't say that. So you think that they're just like this well-oiled machine that's got everything down right, and everyone's so smart in the room. And like, I found that, actually, like, I can engage with these people. I can have great ideation meetings with them, and I feel like I'm not any lesser than. And so I was like, every time I've kind of gone behind the curtain, I've found that, these are just regular people.
It's good. They're regular people, but sometimes they're just further down the path than you. But they're not better than you. They just have gone farther in the journey. And you can be there too if you don't let imposter syndrome cripple you from working hard to progress. And that's where, the biggest problem with imposter syndrome is when it keeps us from doing it. How long did it take you to post your first YouTube video? Now, you're really outgoing, so maybe not as long for you. But for me, it took a year. It took a year to muster the guts to post my first YouTube video. Now answer my question. How long did it take you?
I posted it really quickly because it was just like no one was going to watch it, and it was like a 1 minute rant. So I didn't mind, and then it just kind of grew from there. But I hear you on that. There's definitely like things that I'm hesitant about putting up as well. I'm like, like, is this good? Is this not good? So I definitely have that feeling. But I'm like, just send, just upload, just do it. What's the worst that can happen?
We mentioned Gary Vee in our other video. But Gary Vee is one of the best examples of posting rough, raw content. I mean, his stuff is so not polished. It has jump cut edits. It has, just sometimes bad camera footage, sometimes jiggly camera, and it's sometimes the audio's not that great. But he's just posting it regardless. And we get into this mindset of posting, thinking, man, I got to get this polished up and it's got to look so good. But look at Gary Vee with millions of followers just sharing his nuggets out there to the world in whatever format it's in. That's a good example for all of us. And there are people out there, going back to the imposter syndrome thing, there probably are people out there that don't feel imposter syndrome, but they come across as arrogant or prideful, that they're just like, I got this. And so I think that there is some of that out there. I don't want to be that. I embrace my imposter syndrome and use that to fuel humility, which makes me more accessible, I think, to people, where they feel like, you know what? I can. You messaged me and said, hey, want to make some content? And I was like, totally, because hopefully because you felt like he seems like he seems like he might say yes. And
Yeah.
of course I did. I replied to you like a minute later, right? So
Yeah,
anyway.
totally. I think like, I was just thinking about this recently is I found that like my first few years of being a designer, I never wanted to admit that I was wrong or admit like that, my designs needed to be improved upon. I felt very like a lot of attachment to that. And the attachment came from just not wanting to be humble and because I felt such a strong imposter syndrome, like I just had to fake it. And that if anyone tried to like poke at that, I would crumble a little bit and be like really upset about it. And I now, like in the last couple years now, have been able to tell junior designers, like, just tell me if you're feeling like insecure or if you're feeling uncomfortable about doing something, like let me know. And that's totally okay. It humanizes you. And I also had to learn that I have to do that myself to build even better connections with my clients, with people I work with my team members. And obviously now on camera, like I have to expose those insecurities and the things that I'm not great at and let them know when I'm not feeling super confident. And that's okay too. The other thing I have to say about it is that I found that if I'm feeling like really insecure or feeling this imposter syndrome, I ask peers, or if I had managers, I would ask my manager, like, how am I doing? How's my performance? What do I need to work on? What am I doing? What am I excelling at? And that helps me sort of get out of my head, because my version of myself is so different than other people's versions of me. And that helps me get that objective view and to be like, okay, I don't have to always listen into what's going on in here, because what's going on in here is not always what's the best thing for me.
Yeah. That's really good. So just for you shouldn't feel imposter syndrome. You're awesome. You've got a lot of great wisdom and talent. So when you feel imposter syndrome, just send me a direct message and be like, I'm feeling it. And I'll say, don't feel it. You're awesome. Just post.
I'm feeling the IS.
Yes, I got it. It's coming. I just power through it. Keeping a schedule helps. Like, I know I'm going to post every day, so I'm posting. And sometimes it's better than others. Sometimes it's great. Sometimes it's hugely popular. Sometimes it has a typo on it, and I have to eat that embarrassment. So
better done than perfect, right?
Yeah. Yep.